My wife said she couldn't forget her ex and wanted one day a week with him. So I packed her things, filmed the boxes on the porch, and shut the door. Months later, she said she regretted everything. But I was already done. I am 34, and for a long time I truly believed my life was heading exactly the way I had always imagined. When I married Emily, I thought I was stepping into a forever love story. We had been together since our college years. The kind of couple that friends pointed at and said, "They'll make it." When I stood at the altar that afternoon in our small Colorado town, watching her walk toward me in her white dress, I honestly believed she was the woman I would grow old with. Our wedding was not extravagant, but it was beautiful. Family and friends gathered around us, raising their glasses and whispering that we were a perfect match. In those first months of marriage, my heart was so full I could hardly contain it. We planned trips, talked about children someday, and built a routine that made me feel lucky every single morning to wake up beside her. But somewhere around 6 months into that life, a shift happened, silent, quiet, and unexpected. It wasn't sparked by a fight, a blow-up, or any obvious storm. It happened one calm evening after dinner. Emily looked at me with a seriousness in her eyes I had never quite seen before. She said she needed to talk. My stomach sank instantly because I could tell whatever she was about to say would change everything. We sat in the living room, and she looked at me with a calmness that felt more like coldness. Then the words came out, words that would burn themselves into my mind forever. She told me she couldn't forget her ex, Ryan. She said he was a good man who still called her sometimes. And then she told me she thought she should spend one day a week with him, just to catch up. She didn't want to lie to me, so she was saying it out loud. For a few seconds, I sat frozen, certain that I had misheard. Surely she would laugh, tell me it was a joke, or take it back. But her face remained serious, calm, and confident, as if what she was suggesting was something reasonable, even acceptable. I let out a small, bitter laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was the only way I could process the shock. "So let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You want to stay married to me, but spend one day every week with Ryan because you can't forget him? That's what you're asking me." She didn't even flinch. She told me Ryan had always understood parts of her that no one else could. That marriage didn't mean erasing her past. And then she looked straight into my eyes and said, "I love you, David, but I don't think it's wrong to stay close to someone who once meant so much to me." That sentence cut deeper than any knife could. It wasn't just about Ryan. It was about me, about how she viewed our marriage, about how easily she could place me second in my own life. Something inside me snapped in that moment. Not loudly, not with shouts, but with a quiet strength that told me I could never be a backup plan in the relationship I had given my all to. Without raising my voice, I stood, walked to our bedroom, and began pulling her clothes out of the closet. One by one, dresses, shoes, bags, each folded into boxes while she stood behind me asking what I was doing. Her voice shifted from calm to panicked, but my hands never stopped. When she demanded an answer, I finally looked her in the eye and said, "If you want Ryan, go to him, but you will not stay here as my wife while asking for this." Her eyes widened in shock, but I kept packing. That was the moment I realized our marriage was not built on what I had believed. I had a choice: accept being walked over, or save the last shreds of my self-respect. I kept moving, box after box, until her belongings filled the porch. She was crying now, calling me insane, telling me I couldn't throw her out over something small. But I looked at her and said, "This isn't about your past, Emily. This is about the present. Marriage is loyalty. Clearly, you don't understand that." Then I took out my phone, filmed the pile of boxes, and sent her the video with a simple message. "Here's your life. You made your choice." Her face went pale as she realized I was serious. She begged. She cried. But I shut the door. That night the house felt unbearably quiet, like a graveyard of dreams we once shared. I sat on the couch, scrolling through photos of our wedding, vacations, birthdays. Every image now felt like a cruel joke. Sleep escaped me as her calm voice replayed over and over in my mind. "I can't forget my ex. I want to meet him once a week. That cold normalcy, that casualness, hurt more than anything. By morning, the silence in the house was crushing. But I knew deep down I had done the right thing. By late afternoon that day, my phone started buzzing with messages from Emily. First, they were short. Simple words like "we need to talk" or "please pick up." I ignored them. Then they grew longer, turning into paragraphs where she claimed I was misunderstanding her, that Ryan was just a friend, that I was overreacting. But no matter how many times I read her words, all I could hear in my head was the calmness in her voice that night when she said she wanted to meet him once a week. It wasn't misunderstanding. She meant every word, and that knowledge made each new message feel like a knife twisting deeper. As the days passed, her attempts to reach me only grew more desperate. The calls stacked up, the texts poured in, the voicemails filled with pleas, apologies, and justifications. At first, I thought ignoring her would make her stop, but I was wrong. One afternoon, as I walked toward the lobby of my office building, I heard someone call my name. When I turned, there she was, Emily. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, her hair pulled back messily, and her entire presence carried desperation. She walked toward me quickly, her voice cracking as she said, "David, please, I didn't want to leave you. I just thought I could keep Ryan in my life. I was wrong. Please don't throw us away over one mistake." I remember letting out a long, heavy breath as people around us stopped to watch. But I didn't care about them. I looked at Emily and said, "A mistake? Forgetting to take out the trash is a mistake. Leaving your shoes in the hallway is a mistake. But looking me in the eye and asking if you could spend one day a week with your ex, that wasn't a mistake. That was a choice that changed everything." Her eyes filled with tears, her head shaking as she whispered that she wasn't thinking clearly, that she just didn't want to erase Ryan completely. She begged, "I love you, David. Please don't leave me." But by then, something inside me was cold, solid, and unmovable. I looked at her calmly and said, "You lost me the second you asked that. You don't get to have it both ways." Then I walked past her, leaving her standing there in front of strangers, covering her face in shame. Weeks passed, and her persistence only intensified. Some days she pleaded, saying, "Please let me fix this. I'll do anything." Other days she was angry, accusing me of giving up too easily, texting things like, "You're destroying us." Then, the next day, she would switch back to softness, writing, "You're the only person I've ever truly loved." It was like watching someone spin in circles, never settling on the truth. But then one night, she finally revealed something she hadn't said before. In a long, late-night message, she wrote, "Ryan had been reaching out even before the wedding. I shouldn't have entertained it, but I missed the attention. I thought I could handle it. I was wrong." Reading those words felt like another betrayal. She hadn't just reconnected with him after marriage. He had been hovering in the background the entire time, even while we were planning our future. And she had chosen to keep that door cracked open. That was the moment I knew for certain there would be no second chance. I blocked her number that same night. For a while, it brought me some peace, but it didn't last long. When Emily realized she couldn't reach me, she turned to everyone around me. She showed up at my sister's place, crying and saying I was throwing away a marriage over something small. My sister called me that night to tell me what happened. When I asked if she believed Emily's story, she paused and then said, "David, I saw how broken you were after that night. I know this isn't small. Don't worry, I'm not falling for it." That gave me some comfort, but Emily didn't stop there. She reached out to my best friend, then even my parents, telling them all versions of the same tale, that I had overreacted, that she didn't mean it the way it sounded, that she had made a minor misstep. But everyone who truly knew me had seen the damage already. They knew I wouldn't walk away from a marriage over nothing. Eventually, word reached me from mutual acquaintances that things with Ryan had fallen apart quickly. The man she had once painted as understanding and supportive was nothing like the fantasy she had built around him. People said he was controlling, irresponsible, and completely uninterested in commitment. Hearing that didn't surprise me at all. Reality rarely lives up to fantasy. And now Emily had nothing, no marriage, no ex, just the consequences of her own choices. About 6 months later, I ran into her by accident at a grocery store. I turned into an aisle, and there she was, holding a basket. She looked different, tired, worn out, the glow that once surrounded her completely gone. She froze for a second before giving me a nervous smile and saying softly, "David, can we talk?" I almost laughed at the timing. After all the begging, excuses, and lies, now she wanted to talk. I asked, "Talk about what?" "You already made your choice." Her face fell, but she didn't look away. She set the basket on the floor and said quickly, "I was wrong. I thought Ryan cared about me. I thought I could keep both. You as my husband and him as some part of my life. But I see now how stupid that was. You were the only one who truly loved me." For a moment, I just stared at her, reading the regret written across her face. Maybe it was real, maybe it was just another act. But even if it was real, it didn't erase what she had done. I looked at her and said, "You're right about one thing. I did love you more than anything. But love without respect means nothing. You didn't just hurt me, Emily. You betrayed the very meaning of marriage. And that's not something I can forgive." Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked like she might collapse right there in the aisle. But I had nothing left to give her. No comfort, no second chances. I picked up my cart and walked past her. She called my name softly once more, but I didn't turn around. That night, sitting alone in my quiet home, I realized something important. For the first time since it all fell apart, I didn't feel broken anymore. Her betrayal had cut deep, yes, but it had also forced me to discover something I should have valued from the very beginning. My own self-respect. Love can fade, it can be rebuilt someday with someone else. But once you sacrifice your dignity, it's gone forever. Emily wanted the best of both worlds. But in the end, she was left with nothing. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt done. And that, in its own way, was freedom. It has been months since that grocery store encounter. I haven't seen her again. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about the marriage she tossed away or if she still tells herself it wasn't as bad as it truly was. But honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. That chapter is closed. I walked out of it with scars, yes, but also with clarity. Marriage isn't complicated. It's loyalty, respect, and love intertwined. The moment one of those threads snaps, the entire fabric falls apart. Emily learned that too late. I appreciate you staying with me until the end of this story. If you enjoyed listening, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more stories like this one.